Hey, this is my review of Underground Episode 3, Aches. And we're just going to get right into it. I would like to say, aka, the title of this episode should be Ernestine's Conscious versus Rosalie's Awakening. Because this whole episode was just full of symbolism and foreshadowing, and it was just so deep. It's actually now one of my favorite episodes. The very opening scene, let's just get right into it, is the foreshadowing of, I think, the point that they were trying to drive in this episode. And I'm just going to repeat it. So Daniel, I think is his name, is reading a essay or something by Sojourner Truth that is in the paper to his daughter. He's the guy who taught himself how to read, or is currently teaching himself. And she reads, I think it was Ain't I a Woman is where it's from, and he reads this, and then a man responds to Sojourner Truth, well, where did your Christ come from? It's something, there's no woman, where did your Christ come from? Woman doesn't belong and it's not strong or whatever. And she just basically answers, from God and a woman, and man had nothing to do with it, referring to the fact that Mother Mary conceived Christ without the help of a actual human man. She just needed God in herself. So the daughter says to the father, what does that mean? And he says, it means that you are just not strong in your body, but you're also strong in your mind. And that is so powerful and so deep. And like I said before in past reviews, if you are a feminist, if you are into women's rights, if you are all about the struggle of women, this show is for you, because it has so many strong characters, and they are of all races and different backgrounds, and it really does really bring up a lot of issues facing women in history in general, and of how we've been always taught that we were more inferior than men, and it goes a long way. And this episode definitely was just all about just Rosalie and Ernestine, and we're going to get into that. So first, let's just go straight to the Gullah Geechee plantation where Ernestine is now. She is just poisoning herself still with this drug that's either a chloroform rag or something, and she's just inhaling away, and she is just trying to get rid of these haunting spirits, and she has no will to live anymore at all. She doesn't believe in anything. She's literally an atheist right now, because she doesn't believe in the gospel God from the land, and she most certainly has no interest in these Gullah Geechee West African traditions and spirits and whatever she called it that they're doing. And she literally says to him, your spirits can't do anything here. We have been from Africa a long time ago, and the white man's Bible is just that. It's for the white man. Which is really interesting, because there are people that still think like that today. And we can get into that in the comments in a whole nother discussion. But I thought that was a really like deep scene. And I'm going to get into it more. He says to her, well, the pain that you are carrying thrives off of isolation, and the ancestors taught me that. And if you notice, when they talk, they have really strong accents. They do say we. They never say I or you, which is really interesting that they have to emphasize that. And if you notice, everything's more colorful there. There's more of a community. It seems like there's a lot of customs that hold them together. And this speaks mounds to what is at the very essence of the argument about slavery, in terms of African Americans saying, you stole our culture, you stole our tongue, you stole us from our people, things like that, because these were the things that they were robbed of. And see, where Ernestine is from, in a heart plantation, you only protect your own. You protect your children, maybe your husband, your mother, whatever, but you don't worry about everybody else. It's every man for themselves, because, anybody can get killed at any moment, and it's a brutal environment. And that is because the system purposely set it up that way, because they knew that a people that could not band together and keep their community intact and would be easier to control. And I think that contrast is showing in by seeing her experience on the Gullah Geechee Islands, and seeing how they how their slave life is versus hers. It's still terrible, but they seem to have a lot more they don't seem to be broken in spirit because they have each other and they are aware that they need to do that. And as far as another review, someone was like, well, why didn't the chick that had the abortion, why was she not telling her elders and her father who she slept with and what happened? Why wouldn't she just talk about it? Well, one is because, first of all, as we also see, they still have maintained some sort of instilling dignity in their daughters. Like they don't want you sleeping around with just anybody. They don't want you, they seem to still believe in a family unit and in some type of self-worth. And she's in trouble for what she did, but she won't talk about it because she's looking at Ernestine, and Ernestine has a beat up face because she knows that the man that she laid with beats the shit out of Ernestine, and Ernestine is also the one that gave her the drug. So, she's kind of in a code of silence, which is really interesting because it brings up that code of silence that goes on in domestic violence, where people know something's going on but they don't say anything. And it also talks about things that happen behind closed doors, because he was about to smack the God's living whatever out of Ernestine when she told him, I don't need you to protect me, after she got beat up by the overseer. And you could tell he wanted to give her a good one, but because everybody was looking, he kept it to himself. He had that restraint, and he allowed his ego to be deflated. But behind closed doors, whenever he is emasculated, it seems that he takes all of that emasculation that he gets from not being able to be a real man out on her, which is another subject that we can open up in the comment section about domestic violence within the Black community and where did it start and why. Remember, this episode is named Aches, and so it is really, really deep, and there's so many things that have happened in this episode that could be discussion points that could last hours. So she's also being haunted by her eldest son, Sam, now. And, he said a couple of interesting things. And remember, this is not really Sam. This is her consciousness, he said a thing like, all you ever did was tell me just to be a good nigga, and I was supposed to be, he said, I was one of Max's most exceptional niggas. You told me to just follow in line and just to do what I was told, and then I ended up at the end of a rope anyway. And I think this is Ernestine's, kind of like consciousness eating at her, like, did I do the right thing? Was I really wrong? And this is so supported by a lot of different scenes. And I'm going to get to Rosalie in a second, but it's like I need to talk about Ernestine in order to understand what we saw in Rosalie's journey and why they are showing that. And I think it's pretty profound. First of all, we get to see Ernestine's past life. We learned that she had a baby taken from her. We learned that she had a husband that was Sam's, or a boyfriend that was Sam's father, and he was killed, obviously whipped to death or something. And that was at the time where she realized that she didn't have as much control as she thought she did. When Sam asked her, "Are you going to take care of me like that too?" Meaning, like, I think that haunts her, because she knew then at that moment that there was only so much she could do to protect the things that she loved and the people that she loved, because a lot of things are just out of her hands, especially when it comes to free will. And yeah, that was a pretty tough scene. But we also learned that she went to the conjure woman, who is played by Angela Bassett, and that told her, I heard you help girls. And the girl goes, and she says, well, you're not with child. I've seen you prancing around the master's quarters and, enticing these white men, and, you're already well off. You already seem to think you got it figured out. And Ernestine says, well, I have this body and it's mine. I'm going to use it to get what I need because it's all I have. And she responds back to her, you will never have your body. Your body will never be yours. And until you figure that out, you're not going to go anywhere. And I thought that was a really interesting scene, because Angela Bassett's character seems very, very strong. And we know that she's going to teach Ernestine things that are going to help her gain her position in the future. But then the breakdown of telling her that she does not own her own body is very, 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 like, tough love. Like, she's kind of telling her the truth, but it's, like, heartbreaking to hear a young girl be told that. And she just tells her, you're pretty, and that's what you have going for you. You're going to have to learn to use that to your advantage. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes, because this is a setup for us to understand where Ernestine has been and how she arrived to where she is now and why she is the way that she is. And I'm going to say again, when I get into Rosalie's journey, that's where we're going to figure out that, because see, the ladies aren't in contact with each other. So Ernestine has no idea what the hell has happened to her daughter. So at this point in her mind, all her children are fucked. Her youngest son is probably in the field. Sam is dead. And as far as she knows, Rosalie is dead. She feels defeated, like she failed. But here is the rub. She hasn't. She just doesn't know. Because at the same time, Rosalie is out there on the Underground Railroad, pregnant as fuck, about to bring life into the world, thinking about her, because everything that she is doing and fighting for is possible because of the strength that was instilled in her by her mother. And as you see through her scenes, she has a lot of flashbacks about her mother. And that is either jumping on the bed and her mom teaching her that, you know, life is going to be hard for you, but there's these little times we can steal away and have fun and enjoy ourselves and create memories. And if we can hold on to that, then we have something. And then there's the scene where her mother is nursing the white baby, and she brings her brother into the room, a younger brother into the room in her arms, and that was a really powerful scene because, you know, first you think, is she nursing one of her own babies? Because, you know, her babies are real light, and then you realize, no, she's nursing the master's wife's baby, and then, you know, she has to kind of neglect her own child. But then they show her put both babies in the crib, and then you're like, oh, that's why you're doing it. Because this is how you get what you need for your children. But see, to me, Rosalie's flashbacks happen every time that she is, you know, going through it on the trail, because she's being chased by Patty Cannon right now. She's got a bullet wound in her shoulder from getting shot, and she hasn't eaten or drank anything. She's in the woods. It's hot. She's had leeches on her. Had to fight off a snake. She is almost, literally at some points, about to give up. But every time she touches her belly, they do a flashback of her mother. And it's as if from her own mother's strength, she draws strength to understand that she needs to do what she needs to do in order to survive for her child, as her mother did for her. They were completely different situations. They were completely different times and reasons, but at the end of the day, the sentiment still remains the same. You are a strong woman, and you gotta remain strong, because it's not about you anymore. It's about this baby. And I thought that was like really, 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 really just deep as fuck. Especially when they flash back to her cutting the tree with an axe with Harriet Tubman. Very, very, very great scene. Because she says she's complaining as the way that Sam, as Ernestine's consciousness, complained to Ernestine, but in a more gentle way about, when they are trading stories about how their mothers thought that they could work for their freedom and that they were taught that, but when they realized they couldn't, and, you know, life came down hard on them. And she's talking about her mother being just like that. And she says, you know, and Harriet says to her, what does she say? I have to remember it. But, oh no, she says, well, the way that you're swinging that axe, she definitely did her job. And Rosalie, that's one of her flashbacks, because it's true. Like, she's basically telling her, your mother made you, though, and look where you are right now. And believe me, that is not by chance. So she must have been doing something right, whether you understand it or not. And so I thought that was a great scene. Now, we also have Patty Cannon's crazy ass, who I still think is too sophisticated. She should be more like Trailer Parkish and trashy. Because she's supposed to be poverty-stricken as far as I'm concerned. Because to me, whenever I think of slave catchers, or I think of any of the whites that were trying to make $1,000, they had to be pretty desperate to want to hunt down a man to want that money. And this is why when they showed revealed in the end, Mr. August is coming back, what kind of honest work is he doing if he's not catching slaves? Okay. And so, you know, what other honest work is there out there for anybody else that does not want to go and catch a slave? And Patty Cannon actually hints on that when she says some of them were slaves before, or they just are so poor that, like, this is their best bet. You know, each slave's head is $1,000. They're gonna do that. That's quicker money than what they could be doing. So it also hints at this whole poverty and rich. And so you see the rich have set up this system, which That's another discussion that can go on for hours when we talk about the way that America was built. And set up this system where where it's crabs in a barrel trying to go at it in order to get a big piece of that pie that's only for a little few at the top. Now let's segue into the plantation owners of the Gullah Geechee plantation. I don't know who these dudes were, if they were like this. I think it was the master's son. And he talk about white privilege. He's complaining because he just got kicked out of a university. So how much of a fuck up is he? They're drinking whiskey. As we know, Ernestine is supposed to sing with her new boyfriend who's playing the guitar. Remember, we created the guitar. Supposed to sing a song, which she totally just, went crazy on him. Which I kind of enjoyed, because she just doesn't give a fuck anymore. And you can tell that was a foreshadowing to her having a mental breakdown. But one of the boys that's talking about going to New York talks about how his aunt, when she was first brought to the South and introduced to slavery, she was just like, oh my God, I could never do that. I feel awkward. But after a while, the slow progression, when he came back to see her, they were waiting on her hand and foot, and she was screaming at them like they weren't even people. So it was really interesting when he talked about how this kind of mentality was made over time, and anybody is capable of it. And he says in New York, he heard this word, which was called bondage, which was different than using slavery, because slavery makes it seem so like a one-sided term for it all. But bondage suggests the duality, and that it affects, and he says, and it affects us too. And that is such a big reason why every American should be interested in the history of slavery and how it pertains to the development of every fucking thing that's going on right now in America, whether you were black, white, or red. If you were from here, it is important, because it is so true. Slavery didn't just affect the Africans that were enslaved in slavery. It affected everybody that was involved in it, whether you were a plantation owner, whether you're the plantation owner's wife, whether you were the children, whether you were an overseer, whether you were a slave catcher, whether you were who knows what. It affected you because you lived in that time, and it was a fucked up system. And it messed up everyone mentally in some way, shape, or form. And we'll get on that. But, tell me what you think about that in the comments section. Now let's go to something, Donahue, which is the journalist and photographer, who is doing a story on Patty Cannon and following around. As you see, she keeps on trying to write her own story to be more grandeur. And she did ask him, when she talked about holding the baby over the fire, do you believe that story? And he says, I don't know. And she goes, well, it doesn't matter if it's real or not. All that matters is that the effect it has on people. So I think they were hinting at maybe Patty Cannon's story could have been somewhat exaggerated, because like everything that they say about her isn't exactly like written in stone. These are, and they're living in a time where word of mouth is like telephone, and it can start off as something small and then it becomes something bigger than it is. And she obviously is like a sort of a legend, because you saw Rosalie, her mother, Ernestine, said to Rosalie when she was younger, she was like, now clean up this bed before Patty Cannon gets you, or something like that. So, Rosalie is now literally being hunted down by Patty Cannon, who is someone that they were taught to fear when they were younger, because she captured so many slaves, and she was apparently so brutal. But he did say to her, when she said, when she was standing above the body, because, Rosalie kicked the shit out of that dude's ass that was trying to kill her and her baby when he, the one of the slave catchers. And they found him dead. And she's standing over the body, which was weird, and he's taking a picture, but she was just like, caption, Black Rose, which is AKA Rosalie's new name, kills slave catcher in cold blood, which is probably exactly what the fuck they would have written on the newspaper article back in the day. But Donahue responds with something different. He says, I think your captain murders veracity in cold blood. Not the way that you put it. And she's like, takes a slight by that. Now, first of all, I don't think that Patty Cannon would have known what the fuck veracity meant, okay? Because I don't even think that bitch was literate. So, like I said, they keep on giving her too much credit. Just make her trashy and someone that you can't even stand to look at. But, veracity means the state of being. So, meaning that he thinks, which is very, very interesting, I think your captor murders veracity, the state of being. She's trying to fight for her freedom. So when she murdered that man in cold blood, it was because she had really no choice. It wasn't because when you murder someone in cold blood, you're usually a serial killer or you are Patty Cannon because you just do it because it makes you feel good and you're sadistic as fuck. That because you got issues, not because you're trying to live your life as a free person. So that's what he meant when he said that, and I thought that was really interesting. He did say that because he also, as we know, gave her the water when, you know, and obviously now knows exactly where she is and didn't tell anyone and is still writing the story in Patty Cannon. So now we're about to question, what is his role? Is he just a journalist type that just wants to catalog this to get the story, or is he supporting her because he knows that she will lead them to Moses? Because he did say that. I just am writing a story about you chasing Black Rose because I want Black Rose to lead me to Moses. So is he just in it for the story, or is he really a compassionate person who wants to help her out? So we're gonna find out in the future, because you know this show gets trifling with some characters and you just like don't know who to trust. But that also was the state of the environment of that time. So one of the things he also mentioned was a Negro woman has a natural ability to bear pain, because they used to say stupid myths and shit like that, which was interesting because that just hints at all of the things that they thought about us not being human, being subhuman, being animalistic, and like the way that our bodies were shaped, and you know the dances that we could do, and the way we could, you know, the way we could move our bodies. They thought that it made us different from them, and that we therefore were of a different species or something because we, you know, whatever. But it also hints at the actual truth in the statement, which could be turned into a positive note, our ability to bear pain. A Negro's woman has a natural ability to bear pain. Is that because she just goes through so much shit? I mean, at the end of the day, Rosalie comes from plenty of women who have worked pregnant in the fucking fields. She's come from women that have been pregnant on slave ships and had babies here on this soil. They have been through shit while pregnant. They've been through shit, period. So yes, of course, the Black woman would have a natural ability to bear pain because it's been passed down to her from her mother, and she has had to bear pain since the moment of conception. She's had to grow in the womb not getting enough food. She's had to be born into slavery and in the fields by 5. It isn't, of course they have a natural ability to bear fucking pain. Duh. So, you know, it's either how you want to take it. So Ernestine's weakness, I'm going to get back, it's the overall theme, perceived weakness. The weakness she perceives in herself is Rosalie's strength, as we find in this story. And we see that when Ernestine tries to commit suicide with the rock, that whole scene where she's just underwater, it was very like a baby in the womb, like mermaid type thing. And I love mermaids, so I was all like, yes. Even though I was like, because I also was okay with it because I knew they weren't going to kill her. I knew she wasn't going to die, by the way, because she's just not going to. So when they grabbed her out of the water, 2 things that were really profound about that scene. One was the arm coming out to grab her, and then you just see that there's a whole community of people on a rope, because he probably couldn't swim, pulling him in to get her out. So one person didn't save her. A whole community of people that care for her and will not let her do this to herself are here to help her, even when she doesn't want it. And that is just like so deep too. It almost made me cry. And then on top of that they were going back and forth between Rosalie and Ernestine, and it was before Rosalie found the cart with the horse. You know what I mean? She was pretty much at the end of her wit's end. She probably was thinking about giving up. And it was like a rebirth for her mother, and for her it was like an awakening. You know, and that's where I say she realizes, because she this whole episode was just, and was basically her on a journey, alone in the woods, against all odds, and the only thing that kept her going was memories of her mother's strength. The very thing that Rosalie uses to get through this is the very thing that Ernestine is questioning right now and is guilty in her conscience about. Little does she know that she has nothing to feel guilty about, and that what she needs to do is to acknowledge that there are things within her control, and there are things she can't control. You see, Ernestine must be a damn Virgo, because she just can't let she just doesn't understand. As smart as she just does not like being in any situation where she has no control, where she does not where she does not get to believe that she controls everything, and which is also very, very powerful, because she is a slave, and it seems like that personality trait is still innate within her, which goes against the very idea of being a slave. So that creates a very, very, very intricate, rich character for this show. So I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover. So yeah, I think that's it. I was trying to figure out what else I needed to say, but it looks like that I said everything that I needed to, and I'm so sorry that I'm like blah, 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 blah. But is there anything that I missed? Is there any scene that said anything to you? I would love to talk about it. That's why I do these reviews, because I don't have anyone to talk to about this show, because I try and tell my fucking friends to watch them. I try and tell my boyfriend to watch them, and he doesn't want to watch it, even though it has action and everything. But so I don't have anybody to talk to about. But this is I think it's one of the best shows, hand down. I think it's what this country needs. I think it's what people need. I don't understand why it's so underrated. I wish that it had raving reviews and it was like on Game of Thrones type shit, but it's not, because Game of Thrones is fantasy, and the world we live in, we like fantasy. We don't want to think. So with that said, I'm gonna get going. I hope this review wasn't too long. Hit me up in the comments, like this video so I keep on doing them, because I just want to know that people are at least watching them. I don't give a damn if it's even 5 likes. That's enough for me. And I'm not trying to reach like the world here, because I mean I would if I could, but I'm just trying to reach some. So with that said, enjoy your Thursday, and see you next Wednesday or Thursday. See you next Thursday, hopefully, or sometime next week. Bye, YouTube.